92105 zip code, one of our hardest hit zip codes in the city of San Diego, one of the higher rates of infection for COVID-19. And what we have today is a pop-up site managed by the city of San Diego, our fire department, our firefighters, our EMTs, our lifeguards, doing incredible work, making sure we're bringing doses into this neighborhood that needs to bring down the infection so that we can reopen our economy and reopen our schools. This would not be possible without the partnership of the state of California under Governor Newsom's leadership, the county of San Diego under the leadership of our chairman, Nathan Fletcher, and all the elected officials that you see behind me today. And I want to call them out. We have, as I mentioned, our governor, our chairman, Assembly Member Lorena Gonzalez, Congressman Juan Vargas, Senator Ben Hueso, and Councilmember Sean Elo Rivera. I want to just make a couple of points and then pass it off to one of my colleagues. I want to say that we in the city are very proud of the efforts that we are making. Over 60,000 doses provided by over 200 of our city's fire rescue department staff. This is how we're bringing down the infection rates. This is how we have April 12th, our schools in the San Diego Unified prepared to reopen. This is a collaborative effort, as I mentioned, between the state, the county, and the city that is, I think, driving success. As we were walking around a moment ago with the governor and talking to some City Heights residents saying how grateful they were for the chance to be here today, to get the Johnson & Johnson because they want one and done. I was struck by the number of people I spoke to who were the last person in their family. This is maybe an adult male with a mother at home or the mother of a child who's intellectually disabled, all of whom saying that they're the last in their family to get vaccinated. This is why we have such good hope for progress in the coming weeks and months. And my message to San Diegans is extremely clear. We are nearly through this, but we need you to hold on and we need you to continue to do what you've been doing to allow us to do things like have opening day yesterday at Petco Park. If you continue to wear your face covering, if you continue to maintain social distance, follow the public health order, and get vaccinated when it's your turn, then we will get this behind us and we'll get back to a life that we all remember and all hope to have once again. So it's on all of us to do this work. I'm just grateful that we have a governor and a county that is animated and motivated, also leadership at the federal level who is providing us the doses, the plans, and the means to get this taken care of. I look forward to getting my vaccine on April 15th when I become eligible. And again, to every San Diegan, please, when it is your turn, start preparing a plan today. Figure out where you might want to go. Check out those websites. Familiarize yourself with it. We want every San Diegan to be vaccinated as quickly as possible. When we do, I think we will be back to good, and we can start working on becoming even better. With that in mind, I'm grateful for the fact that we are here in City Heights today. We have over 300 San Diegans who will be vaccinated here today, and a lot of that is due to the good work of our City Council member, Sean Elo Rivera, who's personally volunteering today on site, him and his staff. They're part of the folks that went out into the community to make sure that people who are most vulnerable in this zip code are being served. So I'd like to, for him to take a moment to explain what this means to his district. Councilmember?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mayor, for the incredible work that your team did to coordinate with us. And to the governor for being here. A zip code should not determine a person's access to health care. Unfortunately, because of generations of neglect and discrimination, that is often the case. It will require a lot of intentionality and coordination in order to bust through the barriers that have been created over generations. What we see behind us is a great testament to what needs to be done, the cross-governmental coordination. But I want to make sure that I take a moment today to share appreciation for my team, which made hours and hours of calls to community members, but mostly to the community-based organizations who are so important to increasing trust that the vaccination is safe and that it will be here in their neighborhood. I want to give one shout out in particular because I was particularly inspired by it, to a promotora, Miriam Rodriguez from this neighborhood with the San Diego Latino Health Coalition, who personally signed up over 100 people for today. It's efforts like that, it's that sort of intentional effort and deep commitment to multicultural outreach that we will need to overcome not just this crisis, but any crisis that we run into in the future. So thank you again, Mayor, to you and your team. Thank you, Governor. I will now introduce someone else who's done an incredible job making sure that folks get vaccinated, Chair Supervisor Nathan Fletcher. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor. Governor, welcome back. It is good to have you. Look, it's been a long year. But what we see every day now is working our way out of the challenges we face. Our case rates are good because San Diegans are cautious, because they're careful, because they continue to avoid high-risk settings and continue to utilize face coverings. Because we started planning early for the vaccine, San Diego County remains a leader in the state of California, not just for the speed at which we go, but for the intentionality we take to make sure that folks historically left behind have access. When you look at our percentage of seniors that have been vaccinated, the highest percentage of seniors that have been vaccinated is in our south region of our county, which is our communities that have been hardest hit, have been most impacted by COVID. The highest numbers of HPI indexes. And that is because of efforts like this, where you have your city, your county, your community, your state, you have everyone working together to try and administer these. And whether it's sites like this that are being administered and getting folks in by CBOs, whether it's walk-up sites where you got to prove you live in the neighborhood, if it's our homebound seniors program where we have firefighters going into homes to take care of those most vulnerable, all of these efforts are designed to come together to help San Diegans recover and recover equitably. And so we are encouraged about the direction we're going, and we're encouraged about the progress that's being made. And I want to say a special thank you to all of our fire personnel and lifeguards who are here. You know, it was last fall when we came to the realization, hey, we're going to get all these vaccines, and it takes medical staff to administer the vaccines. And at that point in particular, we didn't have any available medical staff. You all remember in San Diego the challenges we had of a shortage of nurses and doctors in our healthcare systems. And we went to the governor and we said, we need some flexibility and help. We need both paramedics and EMTs to be able to administer vaccines. And then we went to our fire service and we said, we need you to step up, not just to answer the 911 call, but to answer the call for our community. And we're going to vaccinate you early, but we're going to count on you to be the vaccinators we need. And that program and the intentional effort we did that with Operation Collaboration, all of our fire services, is what has allowed us to move so much faster than so many other counties, to go into the fields, to vaccinate farm workers, to go to senior housing complexes, to go to our skilled nursing and long-term care facilities fast and quick. And so we're incredibly grateful to all of you and our fire service for stepping up in this moment and need to help us. And then just the broader community that's been patient. It's been difficult, it's been hard. We haven't had enough vaccines to meet the need. You know, right now in San Diego County, we have infrastructure built out to do 3 times as many per day as we're doing, but we know the supply's coming. This week, we got 25% more than last week. We know next week, we hope it's going to be more. And so we ask the community to hang in there. And again, a special thanks to all the folks that make places like this happen and make it a reality. And so with that, I want to introduce my member of the state legislature. She is a fierce advocate and champion. She represents her community well. I get an earful every night about what we're not doing and we ought to be doing and how we ought to be doing it, and it needs to be done faster, and why aren't you doing this and that? And she never stops fighting for her constituents and holding her husband and everyone else accountable. I imagine the governor sometimes gets a similar call about what needs to be done. And governor asked me one time, what do I do when I get that call? I said, just do what she wants. Like just do it. She's going to get it eventually. Just make it easier and do it the first time she asks. So it's my pleasure to introduce my wife and our member of the State Assembly, Lorena Gonzalez.
I joke that if we make it through COVID still married, it'll be a miracle, because if you've ever had a wife nag you, can you imagine every single morning being nagged about vaccines that are kind of in your control? I want to thank everybody who came out today, and I want to pick up on what Sean Elo said, and that's intentionality. From day one during the COVID crisis, we knew this community would be hardest hit. This is a special day for me because this isn't just a community I represent. This is a community we live in. 92105 is where we raise our kids. And so every day we see the challenges that are faced by our community members, whether it's because they've lost their jobs, whether it's because they're essential workers and have to go to work, whether it's because there's multi-generational households living on top of each other. We know that this City Heights community has been hardest hit. And from day one, when I was chair of the Latino caucus, we started telling the governor, hey, we've got to pay attention to communities like this across the state. We really need the help. And when vaccine rollout came, we said, can you please come to City Heights? And he did. And just like everything we've asked him, we really need the attention paid to these communities that are hit the hardest. The governor has produced, he has shown up, he has been intentional about ensuring that we're gonna get our due as well. And so I'm very grateful for him to be here today, especially grateful on this, I've actually seen him a few times this week because he's been up and down in Latino communities on this Holy Week. If you think about this is Good Friday. It's a day of kind of mixed feelings, but we have the governor here providing hope, and the hope we usually see around Easter time, the hope that our community so desperately needs. And so thank you, Governor, for coming out. And I want to thank all of my colleagues too, on the local, state, and federal level. There are few parts in California where you have such coordination. These are people we work with every single day, and we work to ensure that our communities are being addressed. And so although as my husband will say, I often complain because it's never going to be enough until everybody's safe, till everybody has a good job, till everybody has food on the table, till everybody has a house to live in. I'm not going to be satisfied, but in the meantime, we're doing really good work here, and it's because of that coordination. And last but not least, the firefighters, especially, I have to give a special shout out to the Chula Vista firefighters because, of course, my district extends down there, and the great work we've done together. There hasn't been, we get a call that there's this homebound senior, and we call Daryl, and the firefighters are there to go ensure that they can get their vaccination as well. So it's been a great partnership, and I'm just hopeful. I think this is a season for hope, that this just shows we're gonna get to every single person who will be willingly take a vaccine. We're gonna reopen, our kids will get back on track, and we're gonna have a better and brighter City Heights, San Diego, and California because of the work of all these folks. So thank you so much. With that, it's my pleasure, of course, to introduce my state senator, who we've worked together for years now in trying to ensure that our communities in San Diego South Bay gets the kind of attention they deserve. Senator Ben Whistle.
Thank you, Loren, and everyone for being here. And you know, it's been a tough year, and everybody knows that this pandemic has hit everybody. All walks of life have been impacted, and of course, we're here in a very important community. This is one of the most diverse communities in San Diego County, and California is famous for its diversity. And one of the reasons we often cite for that California is such a prosperous state is because of our diversity, our ability to contribute to innovation, and but also when we have an urgent situation like the one we're facing, it's harder to coordinate among diverse communities. What's been helpful is that we have leaders in our state. We have the most diverse legislature in the country as well, and because of that, we've been able to individually be part of the solution and respond to the needs of our community. We know our community. We're from here, and we are this community. So all the legislators behind me have been effective in coordinating, especially with our governor, who has been accessible to the community, has been accessible to the legislature. We've been on weekly Zoom calls with our governor talking about where we need to invest more resources to make sure we focus on targeting the hardest hit areas. And we know the media has been very informative and spreading information about what the hardest hit areas are. We know statistically what parts of our community have been in places where our community has been overrun by cases. My district, the 40th Senate District, is a border district, so it's southern San Diego and Imperial County, and in particular, these areas have been hard hit. And early on in the pandemic, the governor's office was very responsive in providing additional people, resources, moving people into other areas to receive care. And the whole point of this is to save lives. And California boasts one of the lowest mortality rates in the COVID crisis, and I think that's due to preparation. That's due also to where we've had cooperation and where people have followed guidelines. So we want to also encourage people to continue to follow the guidelines, sign up for your vaccine. The eligibility for my vaccine opened up yesterday, so my vaccine is scheduled for next week. In April 15th, we'll see a new age cohort, 16 and above, will be eligible, so we encourage people to start planning to take their vaccine. My mother is 91 years old. She has Alzheimer's. And when the opportunity for her opened up to get her vaccine, we were very nervous because she is very advanced in her Alzheimer's. And we were concerned that the vaccine might have negative impacts that she might not be able to communicate to us. And we decided to give her the vaccine because we thought that it would be better for not only her, but our family and the community as a whole. And luckily, she responded very well. She is through, she just got her second shot 2 weeks ago, and she's doing very well. And we just want to encourage people to be part of the solution, to win this battle over the vaccine. We need everybody's participation to take this vaccine. The rate at which the vaccine has been applied has been unprecedented. It's been a huge success. And largely that has been coming from resources at the federal level. And for that we have our president and our Congress and to thank. And today I'd like to introduce our congressman, and my friend Juan Vargas, who's been part of that solution and that strategy to bring those resources locally that's been so effective in vaccinating Californians. Juan Vargas.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Well, thank you very much. It really is an honor to be here today. I'm going to have the great honor of introducing the governor in a moment. I do want to thank, again, the city and the mayor in particular, the county and the state. We've all worked together. I do have a national perspective. I was able to get $10 billion into the $1.9 trillion package to speed these vaccinations along underneath the Defense Production Act. And it's been interesting because I've heard from some of my colleagues in other states how difficult it has been to work with the governors there because some of them don't even believe so much in science. But the reality is here, it's been just the opposite. Our governor has worked very, very hard with the federal government, the state government, obviously at the local level here, to make sure that people get vaccinated. You got to get vaccinated. And recently, I had a lady from Chula Vista. She gave me a call y me dijo, ya me vacunaron. Vinieron aquí a mi casa, me vacunaron. Y dije, bueno, ¿quién te vacunó? Dijo, los bomberos de Chula Vista. Digo, sí, un señor muy guapo vino y me vacunó. So what this lady told me, she had my cell phone, she called me up, she wanted me to know that she just got vaccinated and she can't leave her house. But the firefighters showed up, and it was a firefighter, he was very handsome, so I know it wasn't any of you guys. But she was very thankful for that. And I give that as an example of a lady who may have died if she didn't get vaccinated. And really it was because the firefighters went there, and it was because, again, what our governor has done, and that is to make sure that the entirety, the full government is trying to figure out how to get those vaccines into the arms. And that's because we have a governor that believes in science, a governor that's been working hard, and I'm very, very proud to introduce the governor of California. Governor. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. And look, at the end of the day, the national vision for vaccine distribution administration is realized at the local level. So I want to just applaud all the extraordinary local elected officials that are here today, local elected, as well as represented employees, leaders in their own right for their extraordinary job to continue to set the pace, the tone and tenor of expectation for the state of California. I said that a number of months ago, Mr. Mayor. In fact, it was a number of weeks ago, not even a number of months ago at Petco Park. This county, this city, is leading the way in the state of California in terms of doses administered, in terms of meeting not just the broad platitudes, or rather broad strokes on the issue of equity, but actually manifesting them by doing the hard work of getting into communities like this, working with trusted messengers, working with community-based organizations, partnering with folks in language to do the work of making sure that we are actually delivering on our promotion, on our promises on equity. As a consequence, this state is the only state in the country that has committed 40% of all of its first doses to be set aside under an equity framework. This state has moved a blueprint, and a blueprint that is allowed to move forward on the basis not just of top-line performance, 18.5 million vaccines that have been administered, but on the more important metric, and that is the number of vaccines that have been delivered under this equity framework. 3.6 million, almost 3.7 million on their way, 4 million next week, which will allow cities and counties like San Diego to move more quickly through these tiers, ultimately getting to a green tier, which we'll be talking a lot more about next week. So I want to applaud the mayor. I want to applaud the supervisor. I want to applaud the extraordinary work that's done and continues to be done by our Assembly and our Senate, to Congressman for his incredible advocacy. I mean, the reality at the end of the day is we couldn't do the work we're doing without the incredible leadership of Congress, Speaker Pelosi, obviously incredible work that our president has done and provided in terms of support. Look, we see a bright light, not just a light, we see a bright light at the end of this tunnel. We are now moving through these tiers. We had 13 counties this week move to less restrictive tiers. We're seeing businesses reopen. Over 9,000 of our 11,000 schools have either reopened for in-person instruction or have announced a date to reopen for in-person instruction. We have committed over $2.5 billion because of the senator's good work, because of the Assemblywoman's good work, $2.5 billion at grants, not loans, to small businesses. 77% of the loans that went out in our first round have gone to women-owned businesses, businesses in underserved communities, and businesses that are represented by African American and Latino business leaders. We are committed to the cause. That's our North Star of advancing equity. And why? Just as the senator said, we're a majority minority state. What makes this state great is that we don't tolerate that diversity, we celebrate that diversity. It's a point of deep pride and it's a point of principle, because that value and those values are at risk and at peril. So much of the rhetoric and the consternation, the stress and the division that's marked this nation in the last 4 years, and we'll push back against that in every way, shape, or form, including in our vaccine distributions. I want to thank Daryl. I want to thank Jesse. I want to thank Brian Rice and Abstentia, the incredible work that our firefighters have done in this crisis. But I'm also mindful of the looming challenges ahead as we now enter again into fire season, if we've even left it in the last few months. We are mindful. Yesterday, a snowpack survey in the state just showed 59% of average on the April 1st snowpack. We are not in a drought formally, but we are experiencing drought conditions quite substantively. 77% of the west coast of the United States is in what is referred to a mega drought. And so we are mindful as we now move in to peak fire season that we have to do more and we have to do better to prepare vegetation management, forest management, pre-positioning assets, reinforcing the workforce. And I'm very pleased because, again, of the leadership, the Senator and the Assemblywoman, that we were able to do an emergency appropriation of over $80 million to hire another 1,400 firefighters. We just announced that this week. We have in front of the legislature a proposal for $1 billion to address vegetation and forest management, to get these new C-130s, to get the new Black Hawk helicopters out and operational, to pre-position assets, to get wildfire cameras, infrared technology to bear. We have now invested more money in the last few years than in any time in our history in preparing for wildfire season, but we recognize, just as the case with this pandemic and all of the pre-existing conditions that permeate this state and our nation, that good enough never is. And so I want to just highlight that, because I want to highlight the men and women in uniform that are here doing the hard work every single day, seeing things that we see, seen and unseen. True heroes on the front lines day in and day out. So we are mindful of their hard work, but we also are mindful of our responsibility to support their efforts as well. And I am just previewing, because I recognize the anxiety as we move from challenge to challenge that will ensue as those Santa Ana winds reintroduce themselves in the next number of months, and as we experience the hots getting a lot hotter, the dries getting drier, and experience now this very familiar tone and tenor of this drought and drought-like conditions that clearly have presented themselves once again here into the state of California. Final word. You know, it's remarkable. It was just a few months ago that I was up in Los Angeles, and we administered the first dose of vaccine to Helen Cardoza. We talk about the number of 18.5 million people that have received their dose, including me yesterday, literally 24 hours ago, almost to the second, where I received the J&J shot because finally I'm eligible 18 million doses later because I'm 50 plus years old. And I want to encourage, as the mayor was encouraging all of you, as others have encouraged you, if you are 50 or over, please go, take the time, prepare to get a vaccine. We're not going to get to herd immunity. We're not going to get back that semblance of normalcy unless we get more people vaccinated, unless we prepare over the course of the next number of weeks to get to that place we all are looking forward to. We need everybody that is eligible, that's willing to participate. So everybody 50 and over, please get that vaccine in 2 weeks. Absolutely right. April 15th, everybody 16 and over. Why? Because we have more manufactured supply. Why? How? Because we are now receiving more support from the federal government, J&J, 572,700 shots coming in next week. We're seeing more manufactured supply of Pfizer and Moderna, 2.4 million doses of vaccine coming in next week. It was just 1.8 million 2 weeks ago. So we're seeing more supply. And as the supervisor said, Supervisor Fletcher made this point, the only constraint on the work here in the county is manufactured supply. You have designed, the leaders behind me have designed a system that now in total, not just here in the county, but in the state of California, can administer 5 million doses every single week. Last week, we administered about 2.5 million. So we can double the administration. The only constraint is your willingness to get a vaccine and that manufactured supply, but we really are close. Just a few more weeks. Let's not run the 90-yard dash. Let's not put down our guard. Let's not drop these masks. Let's continue to be mindful as we move into this weekend. We reflect on where we've been and where we're going as it relates to this very important holiday weekend, but also be mindful and sober that this disease is not taking Easter weekend off. This disease is not taking spring break off. That this disease is as deadly as it's ever been. The only reason that we're at 1.8% positivity, among the lowest in America, is because of the hard work each and every one of you have done. And so I'll close on that. Thank you to the people of San Diego, this county, City Heights. Thank you to the people of the state of California for your extraordinary work. Because the congressman said, and others have said a moment ago, it's been a tough year. And we're very mindful of that, and we're very sober about that. Thousands and thousands of people have lost their lives, and they won't be with their loved ones this weekend. And we're mindful of that also in the context, and this is the full loop, of the equity and the disparities, and the lack of equity and those magnified disparities that we are stubbornly trying to address, and it's the why we're here today. Mindful, but also prideful on the resolve and the commitment and our faith and devotion to the cause of truly delivering on our promise. And so thank you to each and every person behind me, City Council member included, and notably for their extraordinary commitment and their demonstrable example of delivering on those promises. So with that, of course, we're here to answer any questions.
Governor, as the vaccine opens up to more and more people in a couple of weeks to younger, healthier, is there a concern at state, regional, and local level that the younger people may not buy into this societal need to get vaccinated? And if so, how do you go on addressing that?
Well, I think the congressman probably is better positioned to answer that than anybody because of his specific advocacy, which he highlighted, which is to go after the issue of hesitancy, resistance, and to highlight efforts all across this country, not just here in the county, in the region, in the state, to address those concerns. We've been blessed, and we will be the beneficiary of hundreds of millions of dollars that will come specifically in the state of California to do outreach, to address that concern head on, and to do so not top down, but bottom up, meaning this. Folks like us, we're not going to convince members of the community, young or healthy, or people that are resistant, of the benefits and the efficacy and the safety of these vaccines. The folks that just got vaccinated are the folks that can do that. It's the community-based organizations, those true trusted messengers in the neighborhoods, organizations that have been there day in and day out on a myriad of different issues. Those are the folks that we need to contract with, support, to do the outreach, to knock on the doors, address those concerns head on. And that's a opportunity we have, and we are blessed as beneficiaries of the Congressman's advocacy and work. And Congressman, perhaps you can talk just even more specifically about some of that work.
Sure. Thank you very much, Governor. Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned was the issue of people actually taking the vaccine. We have had, across the country, problems with that. Obviously, if you take a look, though, at most of the people who have decided not to take it, it's actually not the youth, because they haven't had the opportunity. It's actually been conservative Republicans. We're trying to get to them to say, please change your mind. Now, California has been pretty good. Not pretty good, it's been actually excellent, because they've targeted everybody. There's been states where that's not been the case, and again, as people start to travel, we have some national issues here going on. I'm very thankful for Sarah Palin, who came out yesterday and said, you know, wear the mask, get vaccinated. You know, if we could get more people to say that on the Republican side, just frankly, it would be a very good thing. But the truth of the matter is, I think that most kids want to get vaccinated now. And again, it is because their parents are getting vaccinated, they see that it works. We're having a little more problem with the ideology of it, and that's why I think science should kick in here. That's why we're thankful in California. We have a governor that believes in science. We are very thankful that they're targeting the population in a way that makes sense. But again, ideology shouldn't get in the way of science here. It's science that shows that these vaccines are going to work, and we're going to spend money trying to convince people that. We put money in that $1.9 trillion package to do exactly that. And we hope it works. But again, it's up to you two to get out there and to convince people, not just us. We're going to do everything we can. But again, it shouldn't be an ideological thing. It should be a scientific thing. And that's why we're thankful in California that we are approaching it from a scientific perspective.
Just without belaboring the point, we have our own Western States Scientific Review Committee. We don't just take the word others. We recognize the emergency use authorization that comes from the federal government, but we have a Western States, not just a California-specific advisory committee. On March 2nd, they reviewed, just as an example, the efficacy and safety of the J&J vaccine, unanimously supporting and aligning their support with the federal government. And so these vaccines are safe. I took the vaccine 24 hours ago. Honestly, slept like a baby, feel great. No impacts whatsoever, and I can't, honestly, I was trying to figure out, was it my left arm or my right arm? I can't even feel where the vaccine was administered. So that's my experience. Not everybody's experience is the same, but it's just a personal expression of the safety and efficacy of the J&J vaccine in particular.
Governor,
Yeah, please.
Governor, you chose Los Angeles or the area for your shot yesterday. You're here in San Diego today at a vaccination site. Rightly or wrongly, whatever the general accomplishments of your administration, the headline in the LA Times today says governor's political survival, meaning the recall, could hinge on how Californians view the rollout effort. Is that a fair assessment, sir?
I'm really proud of the fact that we have administered more doses of vaccine than all but 6 nations. I'm proud of the fact that we've administered more doses of vaccine by the factor of 6.6 million more than any other state in America. I'm very proud that we're the only state in the country that's providing 40% of all of our first doses and providing them with priority to our diverse communities. So I'm very, very pleased with the incredible work that's been done at the local level. It's been done all throughout the state of California, and in many respects, we are a leader in this space.
But if I may follow up, the idea that everything hinges on the rollout of the vaccination despite the other accomplishments of the administration, is that fair to put that on you?
Look, at the end of the day, buck proverbially stops with the governor on every issue. Housing, homelessness, education, I mean, whatever it is. At the end of the day, that's just the nature of the job. And I respect that, and I'm mindful of that, and I'm humbled by that. It's a challenging state. It's also a remarkable state. State's running $25 billion operating surplus, has its highest reserves in history. Just beat the Bloomberg Index, the top innovation state in America again. More venture capital by a factor of 2 than all those other competitive states combined. The state's a remarkable state. More engineers, researchers, more scientists, more Nobel laureates. I don't need to tell you that down here in Sandia Labs and Lawrence Livermore Labs, what you have down here at Scripps in particular, incredible work, translation that's coming out of our UCs. So it's a special place. And I don't think this state's going to come back. It's going to come roaring back. By the way, those aren't my words. That's UCLA. So there's one state poised for a massive comeback. That's the state of California. So we're leading on the vaccines. We're reopening our businesses. Our schools are reopening. There's a sense of optimism about this state. And we're ready to tackle these vexing and difficult issues, including homelessness. Mark my words, the first time in decades this state actually has a homeless strategy and a homeless policy, a housing strategy, a housing policy. And we're ready to tackle those things head on. And I'm looking forward to getting us back on our feet and this state back on the map internationally as its well-deserved reputation.
Governor Newsom, you've been talking about health equity in these different communities. This is a immigrant community. The South Bay was also hard hit, also an immigrant community. Yesterday, the poll found that 66% of Californians support extending Medi-Cal to undocumented immigrants. We know that the 65 plus was jettisoned from the budget last year. With the surplus that you were talking about, with the new financial picture for California, is that something you'd be revisiting in this budget season?
Yeah, well, I put it in last year's budget, so you know where my values are, you know where my advocacy has been. I also was a mayor of a city where we've become the first in the United States to provide universal health care regardless of the ability to pay, pre-existing condition, and immigration status. Fully implemented that years and years ago. So that's what I've been advocating for some time. And so I'm looking forward to working with the legislature on the May revise. We're in a completely different place because of our budget surplus and the support coming from the federal government, but I'm also mindful a lot of that is one time. And so we have to be mindful as we prioritize and set aside those investments, how we do that, and I'm looking forward to working with the senator and the assembly member to balance all of our needs, and that certainly is one of our top of mind considerations.
One quick one. I know that everybody's on a tight schedule, but we are a very diverse community down here. Anybody care to address the Spanish-speaking community real quick?
Sí, como no, con mucho gusto. Bueno, le doy las gracias a todos por estar aquí. Realmente es un honor tener aquí nuestro gobernador. El gobernador, él ha trabajado mucho para asegurarnos que las vacunas vayan a toda la gente, especialmente aquí en esta comunidad que está tan diversa. Hay muchos latinos aquí, también personas de todo el mundo, y entonces hemos dicho que todos tienen que vacunarse. No le hace quién son, ¿verdad? O de dónde vienen. Es muy importante vacunarse, y por eso tenemos el honor ahora de dar las gracias al gobernador por venir aquí, darnos los recursos necesarios. Y ahora es la responsabilidad de la comunidad que se vacunen. Tienen que vacunarse, porque si no se vacunen, más gente va a morir. Quiero dar las gracias también aquí a los bomberos, porque ellos están trabajando bastante con nosotros en esta comunidad para que la gente se vacune. Por eso, de nuevo, le doy las gracias a todos los que están aquí, al condado, a la ciudad de San Diego, a todos, porque es muy importante que ahora nosotros nos vacunemos, porque lo más pronto posible que lo hacemos, lo más pronto posible vamos a abrir la economía, las escuelas y todo, porque California está preparado de nuevo para surgir adelante. Pero necesitamos que ustedes se vacunen. Por favor, vacúnense. Aquí están las vacunas, vacúnense. Gracias, muy amable.